Introduction. Why compare Jesus and Muhammad? Jesus and Muhammad are the two most influential religious figures in history. Christians believe Jesus is God incarnate, while Muslims believe Muhammad is the final prophet. Their lives, moral examples, and teachings shaped Christianity and Islam, two of the world's largest religions. Understanding the differences is critical for truth seekers. The Quran claims Muhammad was a mercy to mankind, Surah 21, 107, while the Bible presents Jesus as sinless and divine. If Islam is true, Muhammad must be morally and theologically superior. If Jesus is truly God, then Islam is false. This comparison will be based on historical sources, Islamic texts, Quran and Hadith, and the Bible. 1. Their claims about themselves, Jesus versus Muhammad. Jesus, the divine Son of God, claimed to be God, John 10:30, John 8:58. Performed divine miracles, raising the dead, walking on water, healing the sick. Lived sinlessly, the Bible states Jesus never sinned, Hebrews 4:15. Taught love and forgiveness, love your enemies, Matthew 5:44. Accepted worship from his followers, Matthew 28:9, John 9:38. Muhammad, a human prophet with flaws. Never claimed to be God but demanded absolute obedience. No miracles were performed, according to the Quran, Surah 29:50. Admitted to sinning, O Allah, forgive my past and future sins, Sahih Muslim 2719. Taught war against non-Muslims, fight those who do not believe in Allah, Surah 9:29. Did not allow personal worship but demanded absolute submission. Key contrast. Jesus claimed divinity and proved it with miracles and moral perfection. Muhammad never claimed divinity, committed sins, and was unable to perform miracles. 2. Moral character. WHO was the true example. Jesus, a model of sinless perfection. Jesus showed compassion for the weak, sick, and sinners. He forgave his enemies, even on the cross, Luke 23:34. He defended women and treated them with respect. Jesus never killed or harmed anyone. He taught absolute honesty and condemned hypocrisy. Muhammad, a controversial moral example. Executed critics Ka'b ibn al-Ashraf, Abu Afik. Married Aisha at 6 years old and consummated the marriage at 9, Sahih al-Bukhari 5133. Owned and traded slaves, including black slaves, Sahih Muslim 3901. Allowed beating of wives, Surah 434. Took part in raids and wars, ordering the killing of captives, Ibn Ishaq, Surat Rasul Allah. Had multiple wives, at least 11, while his followers were limited to 4. Key contrast. Jesus remained pure, loving, and selfless. Muhammad engaged in morally questionable actions, including violence, child marriage, and slavery. 3. Miracles and prophecies. WHO showed divine power. Jesus' miracles. Turned water into wine, John 2, 1-11. Fed thousands with a few loaves and fish, Matthew 14:13-21. Healed the blind, sick, and crippled, Matthew 15:30-31. Walked on water, Matthew 14:22-33. Raised the dead, Lazarus, John 11, 1-45. Rose from the dead himself, Luke 24, 6-7. Muhammad's miracles in Islam. The Quran admits Muhammad did no miracles, Surah 29:50. The only so-called miracle is the Quran itself. Some hadith claim he split the moon, but there is no historical evidence. Key contrast. Jesus performed countless, verifiable miracles. Muhammad could not perform any miracles, and even the Quran admits it. 4. Teachings on love, violence, and forgiveness. Jesus' teachings on love. Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, Matthew 5:44. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, Luke 6:31. Forgive those who sin against you, Matthew 6:14-15. Muhammad's teachings on violence. Kill the unbelievers wherever you find them, Surah 9:5. Fight those who do not believe in Allah, Surah 9:29. Muhammad said, I have been made victorious with terror, Sahih al-Bukhari 2977. Key contrast. Jesus taught unconditional love and forgiveness. Muhammad taught warfare and violence against unbelievers. 5. Errors and contradictions in the Quran. The Quran contradicts itself on salvation, Surah 2, 62 verses. Surah 3, 85. Scientific errors. The Quran teaches that semen is produced between the backbone and ribs, Surah 86, 6-7. Historical errors. The Quran claims Pharaoh crucified people, but crucifixion did not exist in ancient Egypt, Surah 7, 124. Theological contradictions. The Quran affirms the Bible, Surah 5:47, but also claims it is corrupted. Conclusion. WHO is the true prophet. Jesus and Muhammad are completely different in character, teachings, and divine proof. Jesus fulfilled prophecies, performed miracles, and lived a sinless life. Muhammad engaged in morally questionable actions, had no miracles, and taught violence. The Quran contains errors and contradictions, proving it is not divine revelation. Islam falsely claims to be the final truth, but Jesus is the only way to salvation, John 14:6. If you are a Muslim, consider the evidence and seek the truth. Call to action. Subscribe for more deep theological analysis. Like and share to spread the truth. Comment your thoughts and questions. If you are a Muslim and want to know more about Christianity, reach out.
The promise of the resurrection and eternal life. The promise of the resurrection and eternal life is central to Christian belief. The resurrection of Jesus is the first fruits of the resurrection that all believers will experience at the end of time. The Catholic Church teaches that the resurrection of the body and the life of the world to come are the fulfillment of God's eternal plan of salvation, where all who are faithful to Jesus Christ will enjoy eternal happiness with God in heaven. The promise of the resurrection and eternal life. The promise of the resurrection and eternal life is central to Christian belief. The resurrection of Jesus is the first fruits of the resurrection that all believers will experience at the end of time. The Church teaches that the resurrection of the body and the life of the world to come are the fulfillment of God's eternal plan of salvation, where all who are faithful to Jesus Christ will enjoy eternal happiness with God in heaven. The promise of the resurrection and eternal life. The promise of the resurrection and eternal life is central to Christian belief. The resurrection of Jesus is the first fruits of the resurrection that all believers will experience at the end of time. The resurrection and eternal life. The promise of the resurrection and eternal life. The promise of the resurrection and eternal life.
In the shadows where we hide, fake smiles we can't abide, broken hearts but heads held high. In the depths we touch the sky, bare souls tangled in the breeze. Sorrow whispers, please don't freeze. Through the tears the comfort flows, gentle winds where solace grows. reside. Courage brewed in cups of pain. Every loss is not